Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Tim was a brilliant presentation. Go on to that one. Oh, is the other one off?
It's all should be off.
Okay, sorry, just not get feedback. One interesting thing that Tim brought up is we've got design, and design occurs by these architects that worry about cosmetics. And then we roll straight into construction. In the UK, they've got a whole separate industry, which is a separate degree called architectural technologies. So the architects in the UK do the cosmetic design that we all know, yeah, it looks pretty, and then the builders have to make it practical, and the engineers. But in the UK, they've actually got another step where all the different building materials, the fabrics and everything are detailed 1 to 20s and 1 to 50s by architectural technologists. So we've really got that step missing in Australia, which I think is why I guess we've got a lot of these issues. So my name's Giaouris, construction advisor. We generally do building defect reports, a lot of litigation support, a lot of remediation design. I'm going to give you a bit of introduction to myself. I'm going to talk about complying with the NCC and the Australian standards, selecting the correct waterproofing system and considerations around waterproofing systems, technical installation requirements, common defects, and your regulatory domestic building acts. Okay, so waterproofing, why it's a big deal. We've seen the stats, but my big thing is from ethics. As a builder, we're building a product that somebody's going to take a 30-year mortgage across. So, louder? So, 30-year mortgage over their properties. So our waterproofing, anything we build should at least last that. Generally, if you do any waterproofing, whether it's above screed, below screed, sheet, liquid, spray, if you do it correctly, you're going to get a 20-year working life, 20-year service life. So that should be from an ethical perspective, that should be where we're starting. We're trying to give people a reasonable product for what they paid. Whether it's acrylic, polys, we're looking at sheets, liquids. Generally, we've got insufficient thickness defects, incorrect priming. It's amazing how incorrect priming is. Fillets and bond breakers, poor detailing. That photo in the bottom right there, that photo is from a Bunnings webinar on how to do your waterproofing. But you can see the membrane's so thin, you can actually the plaster set joints in behind it. So Bunnings are training people to waterproof themselves and to waterproofing correctly. So we've just got an industry that's inherently trained poorly. So a bit about myself. So 20 plus years now on site, practical construction experience, licensed builder since 2006. I had my own construction firm. We turned over 25 million, 26 staff. I'm currently a lecturer in the Faculty of Design, Architecture and Building at the UTS. I'm president of my local division of the Master Builders as well as State Council of the Master Builders. Just a little bit about what we do. Expert witness testimonies, quality assurance inspections, expert building reports, SCOT schedules, which is defect remediation costs, and remediation designs. Okay, so to comply with the NCC. So the way to comply to the NCC is there's 3 paths. CV3 is for fire. We don't really worry about fire. We're not going to talk about it here. Then we've got the deemed to satisfy. So deemed to satisfy generally is your Australian standards. And then we've also got the performance solutions. So we've got our performance solutions, which is outside of the Australian standards. Where's Byron? It's all right, wait for him to come in. Just got to ask him a question. I think I've got the wrong slides up here. So we've got volume 1 of the NCC, volume 2 and guide, volume 1, volume 2. And then we've got volume 3. And the NCC we need is the one in force at time of the application of your construction certificate. The reason that's so crucial now, we're about to enter into the 2022 NCC. We can sort of use it from you can use it from 1 May, you must use it from 1 October 2023. So nice confusion, 2022 NCC must be in 2023. So our performance requirements of our NCC is what we must comply with. A building shall not leak. And we can comply with that either a performance solution, so we work outside of the Australian standards, or deemed to satisfy, which is our Australian standards. So the Australian standards, waterproofing 3740 internal, 4654 external. So performance solutions. So when we don't want to work to 3740, we don't like the details in there. There's nothing wrong with that. We can work outside of 3740, but we need to come up with a performance solution, which needs verification. It needs to meet the equivalent to the DTS provisions. So it's fairly complicated. So if you're going to do a one-off custom performance solution, there is a process to it. So I generally advise people just try and stick with the typical details in 3740 and 4654. And how do you know which Australian standards to work to? So in the BCA or the NCC, it's got a table and it references the primary documents. So it lists the Australian standards that are referenced, because an Australian standard isn't mandatory until it's adopted by the BCA or NCC. So the issue with that is, so you got the tiling code, AS3958.1. It's not mandatory. It's not referenced anywhere. It's suggestive. The 2021 AS3740, however, is referencing it. So where you're doing work now under the new NCC, it's a secondary document. So you can't, 3958.1 does have reference on the new 3740. So then we've got this great thing that manufacturers give us, certificate of conformity, compliance certificates. So what this means, their product doesn't neatly fit into any Australian standards. So if their product doesn't fit into Australian standards, we don't want to go to the cost every time we use their product to do an alternate solution. They've done the testing for us. So this certificate tells us it complies to this version of the BCA and it complies to these clauses. So now if I work as per the manufacturer's installation guides, I can provide this certificate of conformity to my building surveyor or certifier, and we know we've got compliance with the BCA. So it's a way of easily working outside of the DTS as an alternate solution without the huge cost. So major changes to the NCC is structure and format, intended improved usability, new clause and numbering system. They're changing the numbering. So those guys that memorize the numbering, it's a really new numbering system. It's got to do with artificial intelligence, and they reckon they're going to link all the documents and you can float through them all. But it means we've just got to relearn basically the parts of the NCC. So volume 1 is for class 2 to 9 buildings. Class 2, everyone would know your units. You got your commercial, your educational, your aged care, your car parking, fills up your 2 to 9. Then you've got your volumes 1 and 10. So class 1 and 10, sorry, in volume 2. Class 1 is your houses, 10 is your garages and your carports. So what's interesting about this change now in 2022, it used to tell you certain sections how to build certain elements in the BCA. Masonry, roofing. They've extracted all those details and created a secondary book called the housing provisions. So now theoretically you can build as per the housing provisions a house without a structural engineer, because you've got your AS 2870 tells you how to do your concrete footings, your AS 4773 tells you how to do your brickwork, and your AS 1684 tells you how to do your timber frame, and they're all detailed in here. So this housing provision theoretically tells you now how to build an entire house without having to go to Australian standards. They do constantly cross-reference the standards, so you will actually need them. But it's nice to see now that there is a lot more details extracted out of the standards, as sometimes are conflicting with the standards just to confuse us a bit, but that's life. Volume 3 is the plumbing code. I don't use that a lot, but what's interesting for me is that now they've banned lead in plumbing products. And the amount of plumbing products that have lead in them still, mixer bodies and stuff, is amazing, and they've given a 2-year grace period to get those products off the market. So it's very interesting the kind of developments happening, but definitely outside of my expertise. So just an example, this is 2019 BCA Section F, where the waterproofing comes into it. You got parts 1 to 6. 2022, we've got parts 1 to 8. So there's new parts in there. So volume 2, housing provisions. So before they were called acceptable construction practices or acceptable construction manuals. These terms are now defunct, not used, and we've got that separate book I referenced where they've taken all those technical details out and they've made a whole book of them. So an example of that is our roof pitching. We don't need to go to the manufacturer's spec to work out what our roof pitch is. Depending on what type of sheet we're using, that's our roof pitch. We look here with our cladding. If we're using weatherboard type cladding, it tells us put our flashing there, right there above the window. So it's got some good practical details we can adopt. So it's a very good book to read, even if you're doing class 2. If everyone read that, it sort of puts us all on the same page as to how to detail any type of construction. Some interesting new adoptions. So this here in the NCC, if it was an old clause in the 2022, we'll reference the 2019 clause. This is saying it's new for 2022, means it never existed in a BCA prior to this one. Floor waste installed must have a minimum and continuous fall of 1 in 80 and a maximum of 1 in 50. Didn't exist before. Before it was, we had to have falls, and then we had this ponding in 3740, no definition of what ponding is, excluding surface tension. Now the NCC is actually telling us we need to attain a certain level of fall. Shower area requirements. Again, new, never existed previously. They're either enclosed or unenclosed. They must include a floor waste, and they have either a set down, a hob, or level threshold with these three details. There are options for a shower. You can still go to your alternate solutions outside of this, but this is if you don't want to go to the cost of an alternate solution, this tells us how we've got to build a shower. What's interesting here, AS 3740 has a 15mm set down. NCC, 25mm set down. I'm curious if you can get 25mm in a timber floor joist. We do 250 joists, we drop it to a 200 joist in a wet area. By the time we have our screed and stuff, I don't know if you'll get a 25mm shower set down with that normal timber floor joist design, because this is designed for class 1. So I'm curious, practical sense, I haven't done a design yet of a bathroom in a timber floor, if we can achieve a 25mm. So it shows us our waterproofing, our water stop angle, gives you a couple of different options, enclosed shower membrane below the tile screed and above tile screed. Then we've got the flush one where you've got no set down and shows the water stop angle 5mm above, and you've got the shower frame obviously over that. And we've got a hob detail. These are all out of the NCC, not 3740. They are similar to the 2010, the older AS 3740, not the newer version. We've also got our bathtub and notched in bathtub detail. I do a lot of design review because now in New South Wales, you have to do waterproof designs for all class 2 jobs. So I generally tell architects, don't do a built-in bathtub. Most builders trying to explain to notch in a bathtub, don't do it. They simply tile the walls, stick the bathtub against it, put a silicone joint. And it doesn't comply, goes moldy, moisture gets in the back of it, we've got other issues. So it's fairly complicated to do built-in bathtubs. I always suggest freestanding, 50mm off the wall. We can delete this detail altogether. Your preformed shower bases, again, you've got your upturned lip and your shower screen on the inside. So preformed shower bases that aren't this detail, obviously you need a code mark certificate from the manufacturer with the waterproofing details telling you how then to install it and meet compliance. Okay, selecting your correct waterproofing system. This photo here is a brand new job. I went to do the pre-OC QA inspection. I was working for developer with the builder. Builder was proactive. Even though I was engaged by developer, builder, the state of play in the industry in New South Wales, if you're a defects inspector, you either get the guys that are going to fight you or the other guys are going to work with you. They still owe money to their subbies, so they want you in nice and early to get the contractors on board to fix their stuff-ups. Brand new job, crazed membrane. I found the tub, picked up the tub, not UV stable. And the problem was half the roof had the pebbles, the plants, the planter boxes, and the membrane was all crazing pre-completion. So now you've got to move all the stuff over to half the roof, clean the membrane, reactivate the membrane, manufacturer comes out, subsequent UV stable coats. It's a horrible thing. Nobody read the product data sheets, just there was no real thought put into it. Nobody did it neglectfully. Waterproofer just didn't think. Builder didn't check, and a whole roof had to be redone. So we really need to think about our whole waterproofing system, and Byron will touch on this, that your waterproofing system starts from your substrate. So we've got to think, what is our substrate, and then we move forward from there. So waterproofing is very varied. There's no one size fits all. Personally, as a builder, I love sheet waterproofing. It's just my personal preference, not there's anything wrong with the other systems. These photos are my personal jobs as a builder. So you will see a lot of sheet, just that's what I liked. Big tray under a bathroom, catch the water, divert it down the drain. This is how we did our windows and sliding doors. This is how we did this brand new house, every bathroom leaked. Luxury home, huge litigation. We came in afterwards, walls off, floors, skirting tile off, new sheet membrane throughout. This is how I did terrace style houses. So a nice sheet membrane everywhere. You can see where your shower starts and stops. And we literally try and catch and divert the water, We don't want to fight the water. We want to catch and guide it to our drain. So whether you're doing remedial, you've got to consider your building movement and joints, your different substrates, it's a huge one. Design complications, the beautiful details architects give us that we somehow have to practically make waterproof. Material manufacturer requirements, your Hebels, your Dinsells, your AFS. And your finishes, your falls and your set downs. How are you going to make all that work? So this job here, I built a house. It was a 20 mil construction. The guy wanted to walk under his pool. I brought in all the different waterproof experts. Nobody could do it. We had to design it ourselves because he was adamant, don't care what it costs, I'm walking underneath my pool. So we had to walk that out. So this had very serious design considerations, habitable spaces under, storing his cars, his gym and his theatre. So habitable space underneath means you can't have any moisture. So it'll be really strict. That's under volume 2 of the NCC. So I can have no moisture here. This is a commercial basement I dug next to Westfield's block of offices. I can have moisture in that basement. So how I think about that basement is very different to this basement. And the costs then are obviously relative. So there's no point making every job watertight if we don't have to. We don't have to blow the budget on every job. That's why what is the outcome of the job? Then what is the required outcome will help me dictate how much effort, how extensive our waterproofing system is. Again, terrace houses, so somebody's going to live there, habitable space. Tricky because it's a lot of lightweight cladding, lightweight framing, and you've got set downs, you've got to turn your waterproofing up. You can't have timber below your freeboard, below your water level. So you get certain complications with lightweight framing. So understand your project requirements. What is the required outcome? Don't be rigid and work with certain products. There's certain guys, I'm a torch guy or I'm a sheet guy. Torch is great in a certain place. Sheet's great in a certain place. Understand the job and what is required for that project. Always engage the manufacturer. We're lucky now with all the changes in New South Wales, all the manufacturers now will provide a project-specific specification, and most will also come to site and undertake QA inspections. So use that. Use it to your advantage. Liaise with your architect, consultant, your managers, your certifiers. Everyone's got to be involved. There's no point everyone working individually on their component of the building. It's got to be a global, holistic approach. And project-specific specs. So membrane types, obviously our water-based liquid, our polyliquids, bitumen sheet, PVC rubber, polyurea sprays. Nothing wrong with any of them, used in the right scenario, used by a competent installer, and third-party testing. So, control joints. I've used this as an example of you don't use the same design solution for two different jobs. So if I've got a habitable space under a podium slab, we know the control joints in podiums move a lot. So I like to use the Ardex WPM 1500. No, just that's what that photo is of. The control joints in the middle, it can move a lot. That's turned down and cut into the slab. And then we put our sheet membrane over the whole podium. So my habitable spaces or occupiable spaces underneath, there's no chance of moisture ingress. But when I've got the same control joint in a car park, if a little bit of water gets into a car park, it's class 7. Under the BCA, you can have some moisture. So literally we'll just put a little rebate in the slab, and come stick in some of these that will stop most of the water getting in. Because if I get a bit of water dripping underneath in a car park, it's not the end of the world, it's not a defect under the NCC. So I need to understand what are my outcomes, what's the required outcome, what's my compliance outcomes, and I'll work backwards. Because we don't want to overdo every single job, otherwise you'll price yourself out of the market, you'll never win a single job. So we need to understand our materials, cracking and movement of elements, our building methodology. So again, architects might not consider that. We need to actually understand how we're going to put things, how do we underflash? The whole principle in waterproofing and any type of construction, underflash and overflash. You upturn your external membrane on your brickwork, your DPC coming out of your brickwork should be overflashing your upturned membrane. Just keep underflash, overflash always in your mind. And then associated risk. Balconies over habitable spaces. We touched on that previously with condensation, just purely moisture. You don't want to be using a cheap membrane if you've got a luxury penthouse top floor apartment with pebbles on a roof. You want to be using premium membrane over the top because knowing as soon as you get a bit of moisture coming through, you're going to get a complaint and the cost in rectification is going to be extensive. So another big thing to consider is we always think about face sealed facades and cavity systems. We're all highly experienced in cavities. I love cavities. Let the moisture come in, hit the sarking, come back out through the weep holes or come back out down the bottom if we've got the toe mould for the FC cladding. moisture in, catch, divert, moisture back out. It's a controlled method. We know how the moisture is going to move. Problem these days, we've got architects love fancy facades that are face-sealed facades. That means we're relying basically on the paint finish to give us our water tightness. So as soon as there's building movement and cracking, we've got moisture ingress, we have no path for that moisture to get back out. It's coming straight inside. So if I've got a face-sealed facade, I've got to think more about the rebates in the slab at the bottom, how I'm going to control that moisture, what product I'm going to use on that facade, and then your handover documents to your end user has to specify regular recoating, regular inspections, because it's a very high maintenance product. But what's funny, it's not hard to convert a face-sealed facade to a cavity system with, say, a top hat or some minor tweaks. So I try and stay away from face-sealed facades just because most people don't understand them from the installer to the end user. So it's easy to design. Design-wise, we can get it right, try and get that built right on site, and then maintained correctly is very hard. So cavities are your friend. So I've got technical installation requirements, manufacturer's spec. So we're in a dynamic industry. We've got AFS, Dinsol, Ultrafloor, FC cladding, aluminium composite cladding. They're all great products in their own right, I guess except for the ACP with PE contents. But we need to know how to work correctly with them. I don't know how much you guys saw about Dinsol in New South Wales. Building Commissioner hammered them. Nothing wrong with the product. Problem is the guys installing it had no idea what they were doing. So now Dinsol have got 2 guys on the ground that all day just drive around sites where they're buying their products, doing QA inspections on the quality of install. So it's crucial you understand if you've bought a product, how do you install it? Dinsol, Hebel, most of the manufacturers now will provide a training course on how to use their product. And even if you're not on the tools doing it, if you're the waterproof that's going to waterproof it later, if you're the builder subcontracting it out, you should be doing those one-day training courses so you can know what to expect from your guys putting it together. FC cladding is such a common problem I see on sites. These are the 3 big manufacturers in Australia. All of them have their FC cladding above the water level. All of them. There is no FC. FC is porous. Moisture is going to come in. It's supposed to hit the sarking and come back out at the bottom. It's designed for that. It's a cavity drain system. But for some reason, the industry doesn't treat it that way, partly to do with bad designs where the architect just draws a fibro facade straight down onto a concrete slab. So then I end up seeing this all the time. So this up here is going to take in moisture. It's going to come down inside that wall down the sarking. Where does it go? It's got nowhere to go. It's trapped inside. So this is it under construction. And I'm telling this builder, he fought me, didn't fix it. Goes, no, that's how we always build. That's how we built for 15 years. It's great. It's still wrong. And then you've got other guys who think, oh yeah, okay, so we're going to waterproof up. And our tile's going to come up nice and high, so we're going to waterproof there. And so they're waterproofing. I've got another photo further on. They're waterproof over the weep holes. These guys are waterproofing over metal studs. As soon as you're waterproofing over timber, metal studs, fibro, there's something really wrong. Pull a handbrake on yourself. Your concept's gone wrong somewhere. You've got to rethink your design. This is Hebel. Hebel's a great product. As a builder, I always use it internally. Externally, it's difficult to manage because the details are not complicated, but most installers don't know their own details. Lightweight aerated concrete. Autoclaved aerated concrete is a formal name, AAC for Hebel. Put a bit in a bucket of water, it's like a sponge. It's got heaps of air holes. So this is water wicking up the inside of it because they haven't flashed it properly, haven't detailed it properly. That's the inside back of that wall. So not even finished yet, under construction, we've got mold happening because it's wicking up, it's not releasing, not drying, and it's staying there forever. So back to the FC. So the certificate of conformity from the fibre cement, this is James Hardy's, lists everything it complies with, but it's got like their 15 pages behind the certificate, which tells you how to install it. So if you don't work as per the manufacturer's installation requirements, your certificate of conformity doesn't apply. You have no way to prove you comply with the NCC. You're into that alternate solution undocumented. So read your manufacturer's spec. They're tested. It gives you a lot of protection, I guess, if there's an issue and you've done it correctly. Manufacturers rarely get shot down for issues because normally the installer stuffed it up before it's a product failure. Okay, so CSR Hebel. Again, love Hebel. Internal walls, great fire properties, acoustic properties. People like knocking on it. It's like a solid wall. It's better than gyprock. But if you're going to use it externally, it's very complicated to manage. So either you need a hob or a rebate. That green is waterproofing. Red is a flashing. And then we've got these slots here, fancy name for pressure equalization slots, just called weep holes. So we've sarked it. The sarking is overflashing the underflashing, the red, which is overflashing the waterproofing and weep holes. How many times have you seen weep holes in a Hebel facade? So that's issue A with Hebel. Issue B is you've got your rebate in your slab for your balcony. You put your tile screed on, so we've got our screed up this highly porous material. So we've had to waterproof up the back of it, flash over it, and this conduit here. It's a 20mm conduit to drain the cavity because the manufacturer knows it's porous. Moisture is going to get in there. It's going to drain out that 20mm conduit that goes into the side of the floor waste. Never seen that on a construction site ever yet. So nothing wrong with the product. Nobody's installing it correctly. What I have seen now is this detail. I've got the Rio in the Hebel corroding. So you imagine now thousands of linear meters, we've got corroding reinforcement. We're saying chop out 400 high and fix it. The cost back to the builder. The builder's obviously fighting it, kicking and screaming because he knows there's a huge cost now. Because he didn't do this and he didn't do this and we've got corroding reinforcement inside the Hebel. So these are all the standard details. So all I'm trying to reinforce here is know your product. And even if your installer is approved and trained by the manufacturer, you still need to be trained. Because the bloke on the day might have had a bender the night before and miss all the details and you're on the hook, he's going to go home. Loxo, just a competitor to Hebel, again, just showing similar types of details. It's always outside of the water level. So just know your products. Then I'll get into Dincel. Again, everyone goes, oh, Dincel leaks. Dincel leaks because people just literally pour a flat slab, stick the Dincel straight on top. No consideration for ag drains, no consideration for a strip drain in front, no consideration for thicker swell that they talk about, not as per the manufacturer's spec. So again, Dincel's a great product, use as per the manufacturer's requirements. If you've got a dish drain in front, some moisture gets through the cold joint, it's caught in the dish drain, catch and divert. When I've got guys pouring flat slabs and just sticking it straight on, which is the commissioner's pet hate, water will come through that cold joint. And he's blaming the product, I blame the installer and the builder, the architect. Architect should be drawing a rebate and the engineer. And then the builder should be making sure the rebate and dish drain go in. So we've all got to basically work towards the manufacturer's details because it's hard enough to get that right if you've drawn on every drawing. If the architect and the engineer haven't drawn it, the guy installing it's never read it, there's no hope we're going to get it right. So then we've got common waterproofing defects. My pet hate, as soon as the plumber does his fit off, he's tearing your membrane. Like, I'd say 3/4 of jobs have that. Again, waterproofing over the aluminium subsill and waterproofing over the base of the FC. And this is one I'm seeing more and more now. Concrete additives, we've got adhesion failures. So we come out to site, we test your thickness. This little tool, which is now getting fairly common, tells me by layer my membrane thickness. That tells me 0.277 of a millimetre. Most manufacturers are 1200 to 1500. My common readings are 2 to 400. So thickness is crucial. But then you can't be over thickness because it reduces your elasticity. Put on too thick in one coat, you have other issues which I'll go into in a minute. But you get to the point, I can walk up and see if something's too thin. It should look like a thick layer of rubber that's been painted on. You can see from a few metres away once you've looked at enough what's too thin. Here we've got Hebel, they've waterproofed it, but look at that junction there. They just put waterproofing over it. Water's going to go straight in there. Or you got your subsill, they didn't put a stop end. Water's going to go in your subsill, straight inside your cavity. They've waterproofed the outside because it's Hebel, so it means this water's going to sit, wick up here and come out inside. So insufficient membrane thickness, got poor detailing, inadequate prep, and damage to the membrane after installation by the trades. Your sequencing is crucial. When are you putting down your membrane? When are you doing your testing? When are you putting your screed over it to protect it? Another common one I see, we do primer, one coat of membrane, gyprock sands the ceiling, final coat of membrane goes down, you've got gyprock dust in between them, I can just peel up the final layer. So common issues, pinholing, very common. Waterproofing over the screed. We don't like to put the water stop angle in because we like the tiler to line up with the tile joint, so the tiler put a tile trim. We forgot to waterproof under the sliding door, so we'll just run it up to the sliding door. Again, the tile angle stops there, so there's a nice big gap there because he couldn't get his angle under the door frame. There's your water stop angle, there crudely installed. So you've got a nice gap there for water to come straight out, corrode the bottom of the door frame and create mould and deterioration of the carpet smooth edge. This is me peeling up during an inspection. Concrete additive in the slab, incorrect primer, incorrect system used. I peeled up meters and meters of membrane. This is a close-up of a rough substrate. You've got no chance in getting adequate film thickness into all these parts of such a rough substrate. So smooth substrate is key, inside or outside. And just simply bagged, not rendered, but at least it's bagged, so it's got rid of all the deviations. So concrete additives. Again, they've got their place in the market, but this is where holistic global project specifications are crucial. In New South Wales, it's one of the big things the Commission is pushing. Specifications from start to finish. So the big manufacturers will give you a spec from your concrete curing compound if you're going to use it, to your primer, to your waterproofing, to your cement screed additive, to your epoxy primer or something over the top, or your second membrane layer, and your tile glue and your grouts and your sealant. So we get a comprehensive project system for all the products to ensure compatibility. All that happened here, and this only happened on some slabs. So some slabs the foreman put the additive in, and some slabs he didn't. So additive was here, and he's the one that said it, because everyone's scratching their heads trying to work out why they did lamination in certain areas. He goes, oh, I put additive in these slabs. So no one told the waterproofer. So it's not the waterproofer's fault. It's not the waterproof manufacturer's fault. It's not the concrete additive guy's fault. Nobody actually communicated what they were doing to the other parties. So they literally started here, and I'll rock up. After I picked it, I go back for my return inspection, and they're grinding it. I said, mate, stop grinding it. No, we're going to grind. We're going to epoxy prime. We're going to this. We're going to that. I said, do 1 square metre, because they thought I was wrong. I go, do 1 square metre, make sure it sticks before you go and redo all these hundreds of square metres. I go, I'm suggesting put a loose laid sheet over the top, GFAB backing on it, leave the failed membrane underneath and go again. And I said, rip the doors out. They never ripped the doors out. In the end, they did do their 1 square metre. They rang me the next day. It didn't work. We're going with the sheet. The only problem was by not ripping out the doors, they only ran their sheet to there and turned it down. So under the sliding doors is all delaminated membrane. But if you're going to use an additive, your waterproofing primer and system needs to ensure compliance. Those two manufacturers need to be communicating. And that's with anything. As soon as you're changing between manufacturers, you need to check confirmation between them that they will have adhesion. Then the other common issue what we see all the time is pinholing. And the best ones I get told, no, we put that in there for grit, so it's a non-slip surface. So basically, if you get a tub of waterproofing, you want 1 mil thick. I'm going to use round numbers. They're not correct to the data sheets. But if we want 1 mil thick per coat, times 2 coats, 2 mil thick overall wet film thickness. If it's got 50% solvent, 50% solids, my 1 mil coat will reduce as it dries to 0.5 mil. So that's how you've got to know your solvent to solid content. Solvent is how much it's going to evaporate. And then that's why it shrinks in thickness. But if the manufacturer says put 1 mil per coat, it's going to shrink, and you think, I want to get out of this job fast, I'm going to put 2 mil on quickly, do double coats in one go, the solvents are going to evaporate so fast, they're going to pop those pinholes out. It also happens moisture in the substrate or a very hot substrate. The top one we see, because I rock up, I see that, I'm like, what day did you put this down? And they tell me, I'll go back, check the weather, 32 degrees, the concrete's going to be 50 degrees. And these guys are trying to put this product down. The solvents are popping so quick, it's pinholing straight away. So basically, you've got to redo that entire membrane. So again, know your substrate, check your product data sheet, what's your temperature range. There's other issues in Canberra where they can never get it warm enough, their substrates. So there's issues there. So know where you're working and know your products. Basically, we've all got to get so much smarter with knowing our products because the rate of failures, the rate of issues, the complexities of the buildings we're building. Another really common one I'm seeing now, this job here is under 5 years old in its warranty period. So basically, the architect doesn't give you enough of a rebate, puts the floor drain on the balcony 8 metres away. You need 10 mil fall per metre to get your 1 in 100. So I've got an 80 mil build-up of my tiles and tile screed. But by the time you put your aluminium door in, it means my tile screed comes over my aluminium. There's a big problem with that, is the alkaline, the aluminium reacts, the alkalines in the cement reacts with the aluminium and creates oxidization, which is like rusting. I could poke my finger in there, and this build is getting litigated. So these two, this job is in litigation. These two are under their 10 years, and this one's under their 5 years. So it's happening very quickly. What I'm finding surprising, the Australian made the capper on the outspec, when I see it, I see the defect, but I'm not seeing the oxidizing. The imported systems, I am seeing the oxidizing. So I don't know if there's a difference in the aluminium or the powder coating. The Duratec powder coating done locally may be better, don't know. But this is a now big recurring problem with imported glazing systems. And it's huge. You imagine now the cost to fix that. Rip it out, new subseal, fix your waterproofing, put it back down. So people are starting to realise this is an issue. So this smart bloke waterproofed over the whole subseal and the weep holes. So the cement's never going to touch the aluminium, but that's never going to drain. The other problem is then I started peeling it off. And obviously it looks like, first time I saw it, I thought an animal was eating it. It actually looks like something's chewed it out. But that's how powerful the alkalines are in the cement. So basically the aluminium reacts with the alkaline. AS2047 talks about you can't have things in contact with each other. Installation of aluminium frame in contact with the cement screed is not allowable. So construction grade aluminium is relatively stable metal that resists corrosion because of the layer of aluminium hydroxide, but it loses that protection with differing pH. That's a bit of the science behind it. I'm not going to go that much into it. But basically, keep your cement and your aluminium away. AS4654 says when you've got it, put a strip drain in front of it. And that strip drain then creates you the difference. So even if you've got a floor waste further away, which you have to, because AS4654 says strip drain in front, the fall still goes away, you don't fall your balcony back towards it, that strip drain gives you your break and your screed won't touch. It's the easiest way to do it. If you've got another reason you're solutioning it, Able Flex in between the two and then backing rod and sealant. So it's not a complicated fix if you're aware of the issue before you do it. Trying to retrospectively fix it is horrible. This is some of the extracts. AS3715, which covers powder coating and finishes. Okay, so avoiding defects. So pointing out all these problems that we all know we all have. We're all trying to manage design, subcontractors, material suppliers. So adopt effective QA systems. I'm not a big believer in inspection test plans, ITPs, ticking checklists. My first job was for Abbey Group on Central, Town Hall and Wynyard Railway Station upgrades for the Olympics. I was 18. I had no idea. Here's the spec, write an ITP, tick and sign the ITP. We complied with the government's requirements. You need to inbuild quality. Every time you walk out of your site office, every time you attend a site, it's a safety walk and a quality walk. You're checking every time you walk past, does this make sense? Is this correct? If it's not correct, you don't need to know the answer. You just need to know enough that it's wrong, and then who do I contact? Is it the manufacturer? Is it a consultant? Is it the architect? Is it the engineer? So you've really got to build QA into your mindset and your contractor's mindset and everybody that walks onto a job. Ensure that the manufacturer's project-specific specification is provided. Get the manufacturer to regularly inspect the preparation. So get the manufacturer to inspect the substrate, because a lot of the problems happen at substrate level. And then get into QAs as you go. It discharges in part that duty of care that you're not the specialist, the manufacturer said it's good, so of course I'm going to think it's good. Have competent and experienced workers. I know that's a big problem Australia-wide, trying to find competent staff. Construct to the designs where provided, if any. New South Wales, with the Design Building Practitioners Act, we've gotten around that. Every balcony threshold, every bathroom has a cross-section. Our set-downs are all detailed. Whereas before, we get these conceptual, almost post-DA design, go build it, you'd be working out on the fly, and we all know you work it down on the fly, you can't think of every issue that happens. You're trying to retrospectively fix details as you're building them. It always ends up in defective workmanship. Follow the manufacturer's specifications. Use appropriate products. So again, going back, understand the building movement, what building materials you're working with. Third-party auditing and compliance. Dave's going to talk a bit more about this, but AS 3740 2021 has checklists at the back. It's got a bathroom checklist at the back. It also talks about electronic leak detection testing. It tells us how to do the third-party testing. It's all suggestive. But again, the more third-party testing you've got, the guys physically doing the work, if they know they're going to get checked, they're always going to be a bit more cautious. Undertake continuous training. So New South Wales Fair Trading has a heap of modules online. Look up the modules about waterproofing design, remediation design, cladding. There's all these modules now because we're in such a state, almost hysteria, just because the litigation's so great. So Society of Construction Law put out a stat. Construction in Sydney is the most litigated industry in the world, second to accidents in New York. So that's why I guess we are where we are. But those training modules are great for our industry because now it's sort of taken the focus of the industry from everyone doing whatever they thought to sort of one direction. Whilst I don't agree with everything that's said, at least we're all sort of getting onto the same page. And that is coming down for you guys. Most of you, I guess, would know the VBA last week was up, following around the New South Wales inspectors for the week, seeing what they inspect and how they inspect. So there's going to be developments here for you guys in the very short term, I suspect. Managing your workplace, which includes the program, the construction program, to avoid damage to your waterproofing system. Don't put your waterproofing down really early and then every bloke walks all over it. There's no point. Okay, why do we need to comply with the standards and codes? So the Domestic Building Act. I've highlighted in bold the wording. So proper and workmanlike manner, in accordance with plans and specs. Materials supplied are good and suitable for the purpose and new. Work in accordance with all laws and legal requirements. Pretty broad, that one. Reasonable care and skill. Complete works by the date specified. Suitable for occupation when completed. Materials used are reasonably fit for intended purpose. And these warranties transfer to new owners for up to 10 years from completion. So they're all really big, vague wording that lawyers love grabbing onto. It's not fit for purpose, it's not reasonable, not due care and skill, not habitable, really vague. How do you prove all that? So that's where the defects guys start coming in and they can run that argument. Your Australian standards, your BCA, your manufacturer's spec. You haven't done as per these documents, therefore you're breaching these legal warranties. This slide I stuck in, not that it's relevant to waterproofing, it's always interesting in my, I guess, litigation, how many people don't read their deposits. So that's your legal cap for deposits. 5% of any contract over 20K, 10% for any contract less than 20K. So it's always interesting how many people charge huge deposits up front for work. They're so busy, don't shop for 4 months, then they start lodging complaints with VCAT, QBC. So domestic building insurance, previously known as builder's warranty insurance, really only kicks in. People have died, insolvent or disappeared. Many of you who have that insurance may or may not know you're a personal guarantor on it, unless your company set up a certain way. But most people have that insurance, have put a personal guarantee down. So that's why you keep getting chased. Talks about structural defects for 6 year and 2 years. Even the VIC policy, the 6 year and the 2 year periods reflect the New South Wales Home Building Act, so I suspect it's the same insurance policy. So Design Building Practitioners Act. I don't know how much you guys have heard about this, but basically in New South Wales, we had construct and then design was the wording. We'd get a DA, we'd go start building, we'd rip into it, and everyone would just be on the fly sorting stuff out. Now we have to comprehensively finish our design. We've got a spreadsheet that tells us what type of disciplines, what type of drawings we're required to provide. It's great because we've got cross-sections through bathrooms, cross-sections through balconies, overflows identified, articulation joints, control joints all identified. And that then gets lodged onto Fair Trading's design portal, because if somebody needs in 5 years wants to do a defects report, they can download the design. So the architects and designers do a design. They then have to declare that design complies with the BCA and the Australian standards. There's no more that generic comment in the corner they put, masonry to comply with AS 3700. The design masonry has to comply to 3700. So what it is doing, it's bringing the architects back onto the hook rather than giving us these conceptual designs that we can't build or don't give us enough information to build correctly. So it's brought the architects really, really much into the picture. Builder then has to sign off a declaration he's built as per those plans and the Australian standards. So the design's lodged, the design is actually complete before you start building. That's probably one of the biggest problems we had in the industry. You want to change that design, you have to stop, you can't proceed, submit a variation design declaration, then restart. So what it is doing, it's making us all get our designs really well developed to the point where I do a remedial design, I get my waterproofing products specified, so I do my design, we go out to tender, the builder selected, I'll finesse the design with the builder to make sure it's actually what he's going to build. There's no point in me telling him what I want. If he doesn't like Ardex and wants to use Sika, I don't mind, but I'm going to make my design then reflect what the builder's actually going to build, and then we lodge it once on the portal nice and neatly. So there's this big thing about duty of care to avoid economic loss. And again, we know the Victorian government is in extensive discussions with the New South Wales government about the commissioner, his powers, how he's working in the industry, what they're inspecting. So these are all new acts that have come out from that. So construction work is building work, the obvious. Preparation of regulated designs, your architects and your engineers. And other designs, so that could be anything else, landscaping, whatever else, waterproofing design, any other design that's not a regulated design. Manufacture and supply of building products. This is brilliant. So now we've got architects on the hooks and the manufacturer on the hook with us. So it's not just the builder now getting smashed to make everything work. The manufacturer now has to confirm, if I'm buying Hebel, what render is going to stick to Hebel? If I'm using Zypex, what waterproofing is going to stick to Zypex? Brings the manufacturers in the mix with all of us, so we're all going for the common good in building a product that actually works. Supervising, coordinating, project managing, and otherwise having substantive control of carrying out work referenced up here. So you've got external project managers now. They can't just push program or push budget. A developer can't do that either. If a project manager tells you to cut the cost, he's then liable for the duty of care resulting in economic loss. If the developer is telling you to cut corners as the builder, or the builder is telling you to cut a corner as to the subby, these people supervising telling you to cut a corner are on the hook. So this type of legislation, people think it's problematic. I think it's globally catching everybody and making sure that everybody cares about the quality of the end product. And care isn't a cost. You can pay 2 waterproofers the exact same square metre rate. One's going to smash it and get out. The other one's going to care and do a good job. It's not a price difference. It's a certain people have integrity and care about their workmanship. And I suspect most people in this room are here today because they have that care and that integrity. So it's our job to try to slowly change the entire industry. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.